Hi everyone. So today we are back with another episode of the Science of Mind Club. And this time we are starting a series which is about meeting the mentors, the teachers, and the change makers who are very inspirational in their own field. And today we have with us Amit Tuteja, who is the man behind Connecting Dreams Foundation. And he's a visionary who has started, I would say, an entire revolution of change makers, not only just in India, but throughout the world. And he's empowering a lot of people to become change makers. We are really privileged, delighted, excited to have him on the very first podcast of the Science of Mind Club. And we are eager to learn from Amit. Amit, a very warm welcome to the Science of Mind Club and the podcast.
Thank you so much, Anupam, for inviting me to this club, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you and the audience moving forward.
Great. So, Amit, this entire club is about learning from people, learning from mentors like you, and learning from their journey. So when it comes to your journey, and I have known you for some couple of years, I would say a little bit more than that, and yours has been a journey of really full of adventure, and I would say a hero's journey. So tell us something about your journey.
Thanks, Anupam. So, Anupam, my journey started as everyone's, like starting from a school, completing your school, then you want to do something which is professional in nature. So, I ended up joining biotechnology, completed my biotechnology for 4 years. And after that, I never wanted to study, but ended up completing my doctorate, uh, working in a corporate. So worked almost for 8 years uh, in a CSIR lab, where also I completed my doctorate at that point of time. But then comes a time that what to do now, because it's been a long journey and there is a lot of I'll say pressure from the field that you have to continue in the field that you have been working. But another set of questions that also came to the mind at that point of time was that if I continue doing what I was doing at that point of time, what I will be able to contribute 10 years down the line. And if I do something else, what I'll be able to contribute. So that was the question that was troubling me at that point of time. And I thought I'll take a break. I'll take a break of a year and explore things. It was very open. I was inclined to a lot of social activities before also, and I was doing it as activities which gives me, I'll say, happiness when I get involved in such activities. But I was never thinking of doing it full time ever. But God has some other plans for me, maybe. So at that point of time, I got an opportunity in the gap year where I experimented a lot of stuff, that I got a chance to go and attend a workshop on social entrepreneurship at IIM Bangalore, which was organized by Intel and Department of Science and Technology. So that gave me a good exposure on what entrepreneurship is and how social entrepreneurship can be utilized to solve problems of the people on ground. And that particular workshop was more around using technology as well. So that also gave me some exposure around that. But during that journey, I also identified that you need to understand the problems really well to solve them. Because in most of the cases, and including that workshop, the problems that were identified were quite hypothetical, because
Mhm.
none of us have a lot of exposure of what is happening, really happening on ground. And that's how most of the companies, the government is working. So they make decisions from the top without considering the real need on ground. And that's where most of the people fail. So after that experience, I decided that I should go and understand what problems are. And I took a journey into multiple villages across Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, where I planned to stay in these villages at least for 3 days, trying to understand what are the real challenges people are facing. Initially, I got to know, or I was told, the challenges were mostly around not having an appropriate infrastructure in terms of hospitals, schools, roads, etc. But at that point of time, I was also thinking like what a person like me can do in this case as an individual. Then moving forward, I also got another feedback from the people. That problem is people like you. who come to our village, and the people, or especially the young people in the villages, really want to go to cities by looking at people from cities, because they feel the life in cities are really good. But thing is, they don't get adjusted because uh, they're not grown in such a competitive environment. But the moment they get into cities, either they fail or they get into habits which are not good for them. So in some cases, people also told me it's not good that we are happy the way we are. We are earning a little bit, but that's sufficient for our own needs. So it's good that you city people be away from us. So that's another perspective I got. Third place where I went, where we actually figured out there was a problem around animals destroying the crops. So there, actually, I thought, how can I can support this particular thing? And during my journey, I figured out there was a solution available in the nearby village. So I was able to connect these two villages together, and the problem got solved somehow. And at that point of time, I realized it is not that I have to solve the problems, because when I started this journey, it was all about how can I solve problems. But when I was able to solve, I failed miserably in the initial few villages. But the moment my focus changed from that, rather than I have to solve the problem, it is about important to that the problem should get solved. The moment my focus changed from I to the problem, I started getting solutions. And that's how I learned my first lesson in this sector, that it is not about solving the problem yourself. It's about keeping the problem at the center and making sure problem gets solved, because that's most important. And that's where most of us falter, because in most of these journeys, whatever we try and do, we become the bottleneck, because we want to do everything. We keep ourselves at the center rather than the people at the center or the problem at the center. And that's where everything falls apart. So this was the first journey, and that's where we started this organization, where we started connecting problems to solutions and became the facilitators of change. And through this journey, that's where the organization was set up, where we used a lot of technologies, a lot of other stuff to make sure we are able to facilitate these communications between the people who really need something and the people who have the solutions. If we can connect them together, things will become better, and these solutions will be much more sustainable rather than we figuring out every solution for every problem. So idea was to create a platform, and that's what Connecting Foundation is all about, that how can we create as many change makers as possible with a similar mindset of keeping problem at the center, people at the center, and become the facilitators for change. So that's how we started, and that's our journey. We started in 2013, registered in 2013, started in 2012 with 2 villages in Hapur, and now we are working around 35 countries, where we have a change makers who are working across different sectors.
Amazing. In fact, when you were sharing, there were a lot of personal takeaways also that I was noting down. And in fact, for our viewers also, there will be a lot of breakthrough takeaways and insights. Something that you said, that such a humbling experience in this journey, where you are keeping this mindset of a change maker in the core, that we should not get into our own way of achieving the result that we want. So that's very powerful. And then becoming the whole facilitator in the journey, I think that's absolutely amazing. So one thing that comes to my mind, Amit, is that this is a great journey. This is a journey where you have not only changed a lot of villages and all, but now you are enabling a lot of change makers to further pass on the ripple effect. So my question is that whenever a leader like you starts on this journey, what is your big why, or what is your reason with which you have started this Connecting Dream Foundation, and this, what motivates you? What is your why?
Okay. So Anupam, my big why is creating people who have a mindset of leaving this planet better than what they've received. So that's my big why, because I feel the moment we reach that stage, we don't have to talk about sustainability, and that's the natural form of what human beings are.
Exactly.
Because so many interventions that happened over last, I'll not say a lot, over last few centuries, whatever interventions like the education system or the professional corporates or the employment system that has come in has forced us to work in a not so natural format of ours. Okay. And that's where all these challenges have started coming in about sustainability, and now we are on the verge of destroying the planet on which we are living. So the moment we go back to our roots and understand why are we there, why have been born, and what is the reason behind this, we will go back to a natural state, which is about giving back, which is about making sure each and every one of us, whatever we take, we give back as well. And the moment you start going into that journey, life is very different. Till the time I was thinking of, and I always ask the people, like if when I go to some colleges, institutions, talk to young people, I just ask two questions to them. The first question I always ask that what will you study or learn if you don't have to study for passing exams? And the second question is, what will you do or work if you don't have to work just to earn a livelihood? If you are
Brilliant.
able to find these two answers, you will be able to find your passion, and you will be able to find the reason why you are living. And I was able to answer these questions, and I got my answers, and then the life is a very different ball game. Because till that time you don't have these answers, you will always have a mindset which is competing, where you have limited resources and more takers, and you will always be anxious around that. But the moment you have a mindset of giving back, I'm not talking about money, it can be anything, your skill, your time, your knowledge. But the moment you think like that, you're giving, then there is no competition while giving. You give whatever you have. And at that time, you live your life fully. And that's what I really want each and every person to live like. And that's what the mindset of a king is, or whatever you call it. That's the heaven and that's the hell in the real terms as we talk about.
Absolutely brilliant. And for the people who are tuned into this podcast, I think they are already getting a lot of gold mines of takeaways where these key questions can definitely bring you to a newer insight in your journey as a change maker, as a leader, as a coach. I think there's really good stuff coming your way, friends. And shifting our gears a little bit, Amit, a lot of time in the change maker community, we hear, this change maker as a term which is used by everyone. Everyone is talking about it. And how do you think that, this concept of change is going to help, systems, processes, education, empowering people? And how are we making change makers? And what is your philosophy of change, so to speak? Yeah.
So that's a very interesting question, Anupam. And when we started our organization and started meeting these young people, the changemaker word was very recent at that time when we started the journey, given by Bill Drayton from Ashoka Foundation. But it's been overused like anything. But when we go to the basics of change, so it's very important to define change first. Okay, change can be anything from a temporary or to a permanent change. But when we're talking about change maker, we're talking about creating a change which can transform lives, which can actually create a change which is permanent in nature. Right? So for that, a very different mindset or a systems understanding is required. So what we do as an organization is work with such change makers. Either they are in schools, colleges, institutions, corporates, or entrepreneurs themselves, in making sure they understand the entire theory of change. How do natural systems work? So it's all about, so I'll give you a very simple analogy that if I have to create a kind of garden, right? So if I have to put my efforts in creating a garden, it looks very beautiful, right? And I'll be changing that landscape for sure, and that's what happens in most of the cases. We create landscapes, But if you leave that landscapes on its own, what will happen to it? In few months, it will get destroyed if you don't take care of it. Okay. So that change has to be maintained over a period of time. But if you have to create a jungle, the mindset is very different. But in a jungle ecosystem, when you go in, you plant seeds or you grow trees in a way that after some time you are not needed in that particular ecosystem, and that grows on its own. So in the social impact sector, we believe you have to apply a mindset to create a jungle rather than a garden. And in most of the cases, whatever people are working on, whatever most of the work is going on, is around creating gardens, or in other words, creating aquariums rather than ponds, where you have to maintain, you have to make sure things are running on their own. You have to put a lot of effort from outside, external forces are needed. And that's where the sustainability doesn't come in. So we believe in systems theory a lot. We believe that we need to have a mindset where we understand the system and utilize the resources from within the system, which can bring change, even though it's a slower process, but sustainable in nature. So this is the kind of change we vouch for. This is the kind of change we train people in. We have our own model of change making that we call as 3C model of change making. It's a 3-step process through which people understand and become facilitators of change within an ecosystem that they work with. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. There are a lot of insights coming our way, and especially, when you're talking about change from the perspective of systems thinking, and, from that ego consciousness to an eco consciousness, or, thinking about the entire surroundings, environment, planet. I think that's quite phenomenal. And the way how you are beautifully putting these change making systems in place, and they are running on themselves, and you are not required after a point in time. I think that in true sense is real change making, where it is a system that is kind of getting transformed at the end of the day. So quite wonderful. So Amit, I had a question that was there, that what can be a takeaway for our viewers, and I think you touched upon this 3C model, which is really core to your work. So can you share a bit more about the 3C model so it can be a takeaway for our viewers?
Sure, Anupam. So Anupam, the 3C model talks about how can you bring a sustainable change in whichever community ecosystem you're working in. It is this model can apply to bringing a change in yourself, to bringing the change in the world. So the same model can apply anywhere, and we have tested this almost, I will say, in more than 30,000 cases so far, if not more, right? So if the first step of the 3C model is collect challenges or collect dreams. It's about understanding the problem to as much detail as possible, and from the perspective of the person who is facing it, rather than you understanding it. So I'll give you one example. In some cases, when we go to some other communities, we might feel that place is not very hygienic. Maybe, example. From our point of view, it's the problem would be hygiene. But when you understand the problem from the perspective of the people in the community, their priority or their challenge might be something else, right? So if you're able to solve that challenge first, the hygiene will happen automatically. But if you focus only on the hygiene part, then it will not be sustainable. You will create it, but that's not priority for them. It will come back to the same situation where it is. Right? I'm not saying hygiene is not a problem, but again, looking at a mindset and a systems change, we need to understand the problem from the perspective of the people out there. There is another example, interesting example that was there. One of our change makers, Lovepreet from Bhatinda, Punjab, was working on drug de-addiction problem in his own village and community. And he has been looking at that problem from everyone's perspective other than the people who are taking drugs. And he was doing a lot of awareness campaigns, nukkad nataks, etc. But he was not getting a lot of success. Even the drug de-addiction centers, which are working across India, are not able to even take one person out of the drugs completely for a longer time. People always come back to it. Right? So once he figured this out, once he went through the process, he figured out the real challenge is something else. So when he talked to the people who were taking drugs, he figured out The real challenge is people don't have anything else to do, or they don't have any positive role models in the community whom they can follow. They got into drugs because their friends were doing it, and those were their role models. So the moment he understood it, he started convincing some of the people to get into sports. And he started creating a small academy of sports in his own village, handball specifically. And within 2 to 3 months, he was able to get 3 people converted from drug addiction into state level sports players. And those become the role models. Until now, from that journey, he has converted more than 75 people who have come out of that journey, because now he has created a movement of creating positive role models whom others can follow. And now this similar situation is happening other places, and people are requesting him to set up similar academies or other things, interest clubs in different places. Now he's setting up a new academy, and he set up his own NGO now, who is working full time into this. It's all about understanding the problem from the perspective of the user. That's the first C, which is about collect dreams or collect challenges. Second is about create solutions. So create solutions is also important in terms of not filtering solutions in your mind itself. It's about doing a collective brainstorming and using whatever approaches that you know of to get the out-of-box ideas that you talk about. We generally don't even understand what this out-of-box means. We always talk in school, we always talk in colleges that we should have out-of-box ideas and we should do out-of-box thinking. But I don't know in any school or college I know of, do they teach this process of ideation? How do you actually ideate? How do you come out with solutions in a very different way? We do take this process very seriously in our workshops and programs, where we brought in a lot of methodologies like lateral thinking from Edward de Bono, and otherwise reverse brainstorming, using the mindset of other people, different approaches, where we come out with even say like thousands of ideas for a single problem within a half an hour session that we do. So that's also possible in a collaborative way. So once that happens, you have a lot of ideas, and again, doing it with the stakeholders is very important. And then pick up the ideas which are practical enough to be implemented. And then we use those ideas in the third stage, which is change lives, which is actually implementing these ideas in a pilot scale, trying to see if these solutions works or not. And then be very open. Like it's not just about idea, it's about the process, which is important. Right? And if you think the solution that you expected was not there, is not up to the mark, you always pivot. You go back to that drawing board, repeat that process again. And after a couple of times, repeat the process, you will get a solution which will sustain, which is in sync with what the people need, what the community needs. And this happens. This happens most of the time. So it's important to go through this process where you work with the community, understand their mindset, make sure you identify the resources and the people who can continue doing the same process over and over again within their community, and create role models within the community to solve those problems. So that's where this model is a little unique, which is simple enough to be implemented by people who do not even know how to read and write, and we've done that in some cases, and it is as effective as in places where which is in corporates or big industries. The same model has also worked. So we are trying to create people who understand this process and become facilitators of change.
Brilliant. That's quite an interesting model, and the model itself is very, very insightful. And I think it's a brilliant takeaway for the viewers who are tuned in. Collecting dreams, creating solutions, changing life. I think that's an amazing journey that you have defined as a roadmap, and it is based on these foundations that you are talking about. You're taking some of the best resources along this change maker journey. Absolutely phenomenal work. Really, really inspiring stories. I wish that we have more time to kind of take this further, but the format that we have kept for this interview is just a 20 to 30 minutes of format for a young audience. But before we close, we would love to know from you, Amit, that what are some of your final words or insights for the viewers of this podcast? And if somebody would like to start a changemaker journey, how would they get in touch with you and your organization?
Sure. So for everyone who's listening to this podcast or who would listen to this podcast, One of the key takeaways I'll have is it's always about looking at what you can give the best to the world. All right, if you can find that one thing in your life which you can do every minute, every moment of your life from now on, and that doesn't drain off your energy, that gives you the energy back, figure that thing out. Because the moment you find that superpower of yours, you can give back a lot to the world. And that's what Ikigai is all about. You will find your Ikigai in the process, right? And once you do that, life is very, very, very different. And that's what passion is. And it's not about hobbies, it's not about what you like, you don't like, but you will, over a process of period of time, you will understand that this is one thing that gives you energy. This is one thing that you can do every moment of your life, and you will not get tired. And that's one thing you need to find. If you can find it, world would be a beautiful place to live in. You don't have to run after anything. You will not become anxious. Your all problems of mental health or anything else will go away for sure, right? You need to find that one thing. A lot of people have done it. You have examples like Sachin Tendulkar, Lata Mangeshkar, and many more who have figured that one thing out which gives them energy. And that's what differentiates a normal person from a great person. And if you can just find that one thing, life would be very different. That's one message I would like to give to everyone listening to this. Just try and find that thing for yourself. Be very selfish in that. Find that one thing. But the moment you do it, life will be wonderful for sure. Second, like if anyone would like to know about us, know about the journey, join us. You can reach out to our website, connecting-dreams.org. Write us an email on info@connecting-dreams.org, and we'll be more than happy to support you, to help you, or you can join us in any way possible, and we'll be happy to involve you in our initiatives.
Brilliant. I wish that we continue talking about it, and probably we'll invite you again on this podcast series. But it was absolutely brilliant to learn from you, Amit, from the inspirational messages that you have given us. And again, I feel that the question with which we started, we have come a full circle. We started with the question around the dream, and we are closing with the dream, that find your dream, find your why. An absolutely amazing discussion connecting with you, Amit, and thank you so much. We really value your time, your insights, for sharing your ideas, and such great work that you're doing in Connecting Dreams Foundation.
Thank you so much, Anupam. Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.